Hi everyone. In today's video, I will be going through just a quick tutorial on how to graph the 7 functions that we used in this week's lab in the TI-84 graphing calculator. Now, as you can see, I have my phone here. This is an app that you can use. It is basically just like the TI-84, just on your phone. The name of the app is Calculate84. Now, clearly you won't be able to use this on a test or a quiz in class, but say you don't have your calculator with you, this is a nice alternative you can use when you don't have your calculator on you. The buttons are pretty much exactly the same, so that's why I'm going to use that in this video. The calculator itself is a bit large to fit the whole thing in frame, to see all the buttons and the screen and be able to read it, so for that reason I'm using my phone today. But follow along on your own calculator, please. Alright. So here we have the main screen. This is where you do your typical math calculations like any other calculator. To graph, you're going to need to go into the y equals button up here in the top left. And then once you get there, we're going to do x squared. The x button is to the right of alpha, the green button. So you see you got x, t, theta, and we've got extra things under there. So click on that. And then x squared. There's a couple ways. I will explain the other ways in a moment, but for now, the most straightforward way, there actually is an x squared button. It is under x inverse, so right here. And it's got the square root above it. You can see this much better on your own calculator in person. So we got x squared. And then once you're ready to graph, you just go over to the graph button in the top right. Now yours won't show up automatically like mine did. It's going to take a moment. It'll take a few seconds and it will just slowly draw itself out on your screen. So keep that in mind. I will show real quick with my actual calculator. I'm going to graph it just so you can see the difference. Let me adjust the brightness here. That's better. So I hit graph. This little spinny dial up here, that means the graph is still graphing. So once it stops, is how you know it's done. So as you can see, when it started, it took a moment to actually show up on screen. So you might think that it's not working. If it's not going to work, it's going to put an error message on the screen. So just be patient. If you see that spinning dial, that means it is trying to do something. Now, if you don't see the spinning dial, then go back and try it again, trial and error, until you figure out what the problem is. So that was x squared. X cubed, I'm going to go back into y equals. Now there's a couple options. So I just arrowed over to the left and it brought me up to the exponent. So now I'm up here, I can edit the exponent. So I'm going to hit delete. And then I'm still in the exponent spot and I'm just going to replace it with a 3. So that's one way to get a different exponent. Use the x squared button and then change it. Another way, let me delete that. Type in your x, and then down here under clear, there is a little arrow up. It's much bigger on the actual calculator. That's the caret for exponents. So it went up for me to type something in. So there's the x cubed. And then let's go and graph that. So there's x cubed. Another feature I want to draw your attention to real quick. Above the graph button, there's a blue word that says table. If you want to access anything in blue on the calculator, you'll need to press the second button and then the button that it's under or above. So I'm going to press second and then graph. And it may not be these exact numbers for you when you do this on your calculator. It might start at like 0 or something. That's fine. But this is the T-chart for your actual calculator. It is so convenient to use, and it really helps you find those points when you can't tell where something is on the graph. So I can go up or down and see different values. So this is one of my favorite features in the calculator by far. All right, next I'm going to do the square root of x. So you'll need to clear it out to do that. So for square root of x, I already kind of hinted at it earlier. If we go back to the x squared button, above it in blue is a square root symbol. Again, you can see this much easier on your own calculator. So second x squared button to get that square root. And then I'm going to hit X and graph. That's how that graph should look. Next, cube root. So I'm going to go to y equals, clear this out again. Now this one doesn't have a nice button you can just press to get into it. You're going to have to go find it. So there are some important buttons that have a lot of things under them. The math button is one of them. As you can see, there's a lot to look at here. So if I look at the menu, I have fraction converter, decimal converter, x cubed, which I could have done that earlier if I wanted to, but I felt like that was going to be not as user-friendly than just using the caret button and putting in a number. And then under the x cubed, so the fourth option is the cube root. So I'm going to use that. And you use enter to click on it. And then X. And what's nice is once I put this in, I can actually go and edit that number up there if I want to change it to something else. There's another button for other numbers besides 3 if you want to use it, but that's a neat little shortcut. Graph. Looks like that. Another thing about the graph, when you're using the graph, make sure, I'm going to go under zoom here. You want to make sure it has the standard zoom dimensions. So scroll down, it's option 6. It says Z standard, that's for zoom standard. And I'm going to hit enter to use it. Now it didn't change my graph because it was already set to the standard zoom, but if your graph is zoomed in or out, that's an easy way to get it back to the original zoom is zoom 6. Go to zoom and then option 6. So that's very convenient. All right, that was x cubed. Absolute value of x, clear this out. We're going to go back into that math menu. And then we're going to arrow over to that number tab at the top. And we have some options under here. You want option number 1, ABS. That's short for absolute value. Enter. And then as you can see, it turned into a little absolute value symbol. And then X inside of it. Graph. There you have it. Going back to y equals to graph the next function, 1 over x, this is called the reciprocal function. So to get to the fraction, there's 2 ways I'm going to show you. The first one is a very quick shortcut. It's one of my favorite shortcuts on this calculator. So you're going to press alpha and then x. Notice above it, it says fraction. So alpha x. Now on the actual calculator, that's here, alpha x, and you can't see it, but it's a little bright. There's the fraction. Now notice on my calculator, it doesn't say fraction above that button, it says link. For whatever reason, this shortcut does work on this calculator, I just showed you that. But it's not updated enough to where they put the fraction above it as well. So it doesn't say it, but it works, which is really nice. Now, if you have the newer version of my calculator, which from what I've seen, it's the TI-84 plus CE, and then it says Python underneath. That one does have a little picture of a fraction above this button, so you know it works. But it does work. It's, again, a very handy trick to use. So we have 1 and then arrow down to put x under there. If that trick didn't work, because some people have older versions of calculators and they don't use that trick, there's another trick we can use. So the next one, there's another button that has fraction above it, and it's y equals. So again, I'm going to hit alpha and then y equals. And then this will pull up a little menu of sorts. The first option is the one you want, n over d. That's an improper fraction button. 2 is u, n over d. This is for mixed numbers. We don't use those in pre-cal. Next is a converter between the two. And lastly, number 4 is a fraction to decimal converter, which I'm sure some of you would want to use at some point in time. So it is handy to know it's there as well. So if that trick, the first trick didn't work, alpha x, you can do that. So alpha y equals, pulls this up, and then just enter on that. Whoa. Apparently I got an ad. Give me a sec. There we go. So then I have, again, I'll show it again, 1 over x. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. By the way, you can graph multiple equations at once, and it will graph them all here. So let me show you this one by itself, and then I'll do that, show you another one. Now, on your calculator, it's not going to look this nice. Let me show you. Or if you are following along with your calculator, you've probably already gathered that. And I'm going to adjust the brightness in a moment. No, don't do that. Okay. This is about as good as it's going to get. I apologize. So basically, the big difference here is on the actual calculator, this graph, it looks like it stops here and here. That's not what's happening. As you can see on my calculator, it keeps going. Or on my phone, I should say. It keeps going. Now, the reason this is happening on both graphs is because there are asymptotes here. There's a vertical and a horizontal through 0, and they're basically obstacles for the graph. They keep them from crossing over them. So they have to get creative ways to go around them, essentially. That still is true for the original Desmos calculator, the real one here. But for whatever reason, the calculator is not advanced enough to show this line keeps going. So even though it looks like it's stopped, it is not stopped. So you have to understand that there's an asymptote here. It's going to keep going up and keep going down. And it's just going to get as close as possible to the y-axis without actually touching it. So that is kind of a flaw in the TI-84 plus CE calculator. All right. So that was 1 over x, reciprocal function. Last function, go in here. I'm going to clear. Let me show you graphing together real quick. So I'm going to graph another line, just y equals x. So there you can see 2 different equations, different colors. It's very nice. Okay, now I'm going to clear this out. Greatest integer function, not the easiest one to find in this calculator. So you want to go onto that math menu again, and then go over to number, so up here again. And then you're going to want to scroll down to, I think it's option 5. Yes. Option 5 says int parenthesis. Remember, this function is called the greatest integer function, so that's why they're using that notation. So hit enter on that, and then put an x in there. Okay. Ironically, this looks better on the actual calculator instead of my phone. So basically, this is kind of a step function. It actually makes sense. It looks like a staircase. Now let me show you on the actual calculator. So again, y equals, I'll go math over down to option 5, x. And then graph. Now again, it is kind of hard to see with the lighting, but bear with me. You can tell that on the calculator, the stair steps aren't connected like they are on my phone. This is how the graph actually looks, is on the actual calculator. My phone calculator, it's a bit exaggerated what's happening here. So it is just lines going up one by one and not connecting to each other per se. There's more to this function than what I'm showing you in this video. So if you have more questions, definitely ask me, or if you have another teacher, ask them. Or you can come ask me, I don't mind. So definitely some things to know about the greatest integer function for sure. All right, that is all the functions. And for now, I can't really think of any other important buttons to talk about for the time being. It will definitely be a work in progress. You are going to learn how to use so much of this calculator, and yet there will be even more stuff we're not even going to show you just because it's not in the course. But this calculator can do wonderful things. That's why we just rave about it so much. I hope this video answered any questions you had. If you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or another pre-cal teacher. You can either reach out via email or come talk to us in person. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.